Hi, I'm Stella, and on this webinar, we're going to be delving into material information rules and how those regulations can actually help empower an agent to streamline processes, improve compliance, and ultimately elevate customer satisfaction. We're going to be talking about the impact of property information questionnaires and how we're helping to support the implementation of those PIQs with our agents here at Street Group. We're also going to be discussing digital vendor onboarding and how implementing proper processes for material information can actually help make an agent's life a lot more efficient. Importantly, we're going to be hearing from industry expert and guru on all things material information, Sally Holdway. Now, Sally is the director and co-founder of Teal Legal, whose focus is on leveraging technology to develop next generation legal solutions. Teal Legal are looking at the conveyancing space through the eyes of the homeowner's passport, with a view to supporting the industry-wide push on achieving faster and less stressful conveyancing. So with that in mind, let's dive in. Now, firstly, what is material information? Traditionally, estate agents were governed by the Property Misdescriptions Act. And that was very much about making sure that however an agent described a property and whatever content they put into those particulars was true and was accurate. Which is great, but an agent could technically leave out bits that maybe made a property sound that bit better. So it wasn't as transparent and honest as it could be. So in 2008, consumer protection regulations came into play, and that shifted the emphasis and the focus on the agent to make sure that they were volunteering information that perhaps previously they might have left out. The problem was that there was still a lot of ambiguity in terms of what information should be being volunteered, and there was a lot of inconsistency between agents in terms of what information was being provided to buyers up front. So material information was brought into play in order to create some consistency and structure around that topic. And it's basically been split into three parts, A, B, and C. And we'll learn more about each of those parts with Sally very shortly. But essentially, it's about providing more upfront information to those buyers to help reduce those negotiations post a sale being agreed and ultimately reduce fall throughs. So last year, 35% of all sales fell through. Now, we're not saying that material information could salvage all those sales at all. However, 49% of the sales that fell through were as a result of the buyer making that decision. And that was a combination of them changing their mind or attempting to renegotiate the purchase price after a sale had been agreed and that not being successful, or receiving a negative survey report and subsequently pulling out as a result of receiving that information. Now, shortly, I'll come on to why you should be complying from a business perspective, and there is genuinely a business case for obviously complying. However, ultimately, consumer protection regulations have applied some pretty tough sanctions. So there are unlimited fines for agents who don't meet the requirements. For those more serious scenarios, you could be facing up to 2 years in prison. And there's also the overt public reputational risk as well. So customers can take legal action against you via redress schemes such as the Property Ombudsman. Or again, for those more serious situations, your advertisements could be subject to a published adjudication via the Advertising Standards Authority, which I'm sure you'd all agree we'd all like to avoid. So let's take a deep dive into material information with Sally.
Hi there, my name's Sally Holdway from the Homeowner's Passport, and my background is as a conveyancing solicitor. Many thanks for the invite from Street to talk to you today about material information and what's changed over the course of the last few months. So what is it? We've seen it in the news an awful lot since the end of November last year, but none of this is actually new. Material information has been with us since 2008 in the Consumer Protection Regulations. These rules stated that in any listing, an agent has to include information which the average consumer needs according to the context to take an informed transactional decision. Of course, the challenge with that is that it's always been really quite subjective to decide what an average consumer would need. And so trading standards have been working with various other industry stakeholders to come up with a more definitive list. And that's what we have now. So in the end of November last year, the new trading standards guidance was issued. It's a 35-page document. If you've not had a chance to look at it yet, I would strongly advise you to do so. But if you can't face the full 35 pages, we do have a 6-page summary, which we're happy to share with you after this webinar. Just let us know and we can get that sent out to you. First things to mention is let's go back to the previous slide and remember that is anything that you consider an average buyer will be interested in. So whilst we do have this list of 22 items we now need to consider, if there's any additional things which you think the average buyer will be interested in, then you also need to include those as well. This is not a definitive list. But let's go back to what we do have in the list and have a look at what is now included. So Part A, we've had for around about 12 months now, and that includes information about the tenure and the council tax band. And we're used to seeing those now. Those fields have appeared on the portal listings as well. What we would say is the devil is in the detail here. So it also includes details like inescapable costs. What does that mean? Things like ground rent or service charges for leasehold properties, estate charges for freeholds, or even things like if there's a cost to contribute to a shared driveway or services. So do bear that in mind as well. And also when it comes to leasehold, additional information is also required with regards to things like the remaining term of the lease and whether it's shared ownership, and if so, percentage of shares. So once again, make sure that you're pulling all that information through. Parts B and C are the new ones that we do now need to look at to make sure that we have that information available as well for potential purchasers. Part B, generally speaking, will apply to the majority of properties. So it's things like what are the parking arrangements, connections to utilities. Part C, I think, is being referred to more as traditional conveyancing information and may or may not affect properties, but it does still need to be considered in every situation. And that does include things like rights, easements, rights of way, and also restricted covenants and any restrictions which might affect the property. So one to make sure you take a close look at as well. So the next question is, where do we get all this information from? So there's various options which are starting to spring up. Obviously, this is something which some estate agents have been doing themselves for many years already, and it's completely feasible for you to continue to do that. We would advise using tools such as the Land Registry's online portal, where you can download title deeds and plans, which will clearly help with regards to complying with those obligations. But it can be quite time consuming, particularly now the list has been extended. So you may want to ask your CRM provider or a material information provider to assist with regards to that. And the digital solutions which have been built can be really effective, often collating the information for you in less than an hour, which means obviously no delays to getting a property listed. And the third option, which again we're starting to see gain more traction, is speaking to a solicitor or a surveyor much earlier in the process. Where a solicitor is appointed at the point a property is listed, rather than waiting until an offer is accepted, they can also assist with regards to getting the material information together, or perhaps taking a deeper dive where there potentially may be issues which you've identified from a conveyancing point of view, taking a closer look, for instance, at restricted covenants. And once we've got this information, what do you need to do with it? Where does it need to go? Well, again, the guidance has got various bits of information about that. Certainly, it needs to be in your particulars. Most of the material information or CRM providers can format this in a report for you, so you can add it to the end in a very quick and easy way. From a window card point of view, we're generally seeing that this will just be bullet points or headlines and potentially a link or a QR code that potential purchasers can use. But the biggest changes that we're seeing at the moment are coming from the portals. So Rightmove have literally announced in the last few days the changes to how they're going to be listing properties and the new fields that are starting to appear, which will reflect the new material information requirements. This means that where it's available, that can be provided on a data feed, making your life easier. But there is still some elements with regards to that, which again have to be included in the property description. So do just be live to that fact and make sure that all of the information is going to be uploaded in whichever section in the portal listings. Now, a few things just to be aware of. The guidance provides an obligation on estate agents not only to be obtaining the material information, but also to verify it as well. So with regard to this, it can be sensible to make sure that you are gaining the data from trusted sources such as the Land Registry, or relying on third-party professionals such as solicitors to be supporting you with that, or making sure that when you're speaking to material information providers, you're finding out where they're getting that data from. Another point is that it should be obtained as soon as practicable. Now, that shouldn't be an issue for the reasons that we've talked about above. There is no reason why this is a process that would need to take weeks and weeks. And certainly you can also use some of the forms which are currently used in the process, such as the Property Information Questionnaire or the Law Society's TA6, which slight asterisk to there, that is in the process of currently being updated to make sure it does cover off all of the material information as well as the conveyancing information. So really no reason why that should be too problematic. Let's also make sure we keep our eye on the portal listings and how they're changing. As we mentioned, we have the information from Rightmove and we can start to expect to see that filter through over the course of the next few weeks. And the same goes for the other portals as well. Thereafter, trading standards have already indicated that they are going to be looking at enforcement much closer over the coming months. So we have probably a grace period of a few weeks or months to make sure we get our house in order with regards to this before trading standards start to take a much closer look to make sure agents are complying with this. And just a quick reminder with regards to that, the sanctions are already in law under the consumer protection regulations, which can be unlimited fines and up to 2 years in prison. So we really need to make sure we're getting this right. Having said all that, we will say this provides huge amount of opportunities for estate agents. We know from looking at how material information is gathered and upfront information in other jurisdictions and the trials that have been carried out, that where this information is available upfront, it does reduce fallout rates and transaction times, making everyone's life easier. So really no reason to be trepidatious about it. But also there's other opportunities here. The vast majority of material information is also contained in the information which the solicitor will be collating as part of the contract pack. And certainly we are now starting to see lots of different products and services evolving in the marketplace where properties effectively are marketed as contract ready because the seller solicitor has already managed to pull all of the documentation together which will be required in the contract pack, including things like replies to inquiries, which is also contained in the data, making hopefully the transaction even more seamless. And we are starting to see evolve services like 30-day exchanges. So hopefully a bit of a game changer there by leaning on the new regulations and guidance with regards to material information, for that to then be filtering through to be making real tangible difference with regards to outcomes. And taking a step further forwards with regards to that, obviously that also means that lawyers can be instructed from day one rather than waiting till further down the transaction timeline. And another assistance with regards to that means that they can then do title fix services. So for instance, let's say there's a short lease or a ground rent issue, they can be on the front foot with regard to sorting that out before a buyer comes along, avoiding unnecessary delays further down the line. And we're also seeing services start to evolve as well, which are including the searches. Now, traditionally, obviously, these will be ordered by the buyer, but there are lots of different products and services evolving now where these are also forming part of the contract pack, which again can have time-saving, positive time-saving impacts on transactions. So I hope that whistle-stop tour around material information was helpful. If you want to take a deeper dive, then this is literally cut and paste from the guidance, which is the list of parts A, parts B, and part C. And this can be downloaded from the Trading Standards website, but also if you want to copy these slides after listening to the webinar, then we can send those out to you as well. So I hope that was helpful.
So now that you've got more context of material information, how do we go about turning it into a win for your customers? Ultimately, it will lead to more informed buyers. The more upfront and detailed property information they can have enables them to make much more informed decisions and will reduce those wobbles further down the line. But it will also create more satisfied vendors. The more simple and straightforward an onboarding journey you can create, and the more contemporary and more transparent and efficient it can be, the greater the confidence they have in you as an agent. But finally, and most importantly for them, it will reduce fall throughs. We all know how stressful moving home is and how stressful it can be for a vendor in particular when a property falls through, and the time and effort and cost wasted when somebody pulls out. So let's try and reduce those as much as possible. But how do we go about turning it into a win for you as the agent? One of your biggest gains is the security in your pipeline. The more secure your pipeline is, the more you can plan and forecast and make commercial decisions in other areas of your business, knowing that a greater percentage of your pipeline is going to remain intact. But it will also help your team to be a lot more productive. The more structured your workflows can be around collecting material information and then surfacing it in specific ways will create a huge amount more efficiency across all your team workflows, which will only have a positive impact. Now, it wouldn't be a Street Group webinar if we didn't talk about what role proptech can play in terms of material information. Firstly, software platforms are always going to be more efficient and sophisticated in gathering, storing, and then providing data at the right time for you as an agent. But they can also really help in making the onboarding journey a lot more streamlined and slick and more contemporary. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about property information questionnaires in more detail very soon. And finally, proptech can really help an agent surface that data in a more structured way, whether that's through their portal listings or on their property particulars or on their window displays. So let's take a look at how the three platforms within Street Group are helping in relation to material information. Let's start with Spectre. So we've added new material information data on every property within your Spectre account, free of charge, and that's live now. Now that data will range from EPC information to council tax banding, flood risk level, and much more. But better than that, we've even labeled all the information so you know which section of material information it pertains to. Now, Street Insights is a phenomenal platform that houses a vast amount of data. And if you're not using it already, I suggest that you start using it, get signed up. It's free of charge to use. But ultimately, the data that's housed in Street Insights will provide agents with council tax, tenure, mobile signal coverage, flood risk, and much, much more. And we've given you the ability within Street Insights to create reports with that data in and then be able to edit it and customize it and share it with your prospective purchasers. Now with street.co.uk, our CRM, we've taken it that step further. We've built a full onboarding journey, including property information questionnaires, and we've digitized that. I'm going to dive into more information about that now. Let's take a look. PIQs can be enabled in the client onboarding area in settings. Once enabled, the questionnaire can be fully edited to suit my particular needs. If I click Edit Questionnaire, you can see that Street comes with a default questionnaire already set out, containing all the information we need to gather for material information parts A, B, and C, with each clearly marked with what part of the regulations it pertains to. The default questionnaire also contains the most common questions we found were asked by agents during our research phase. Some questions, such as tenure, come with conditional follow-up questions. As you can see, if the vendor chooses leasehold, Street will then ask questions pertinent to the lease. What's more, coming soon, we'll use the power of Street Insights to pre-fill these tricky questions for the vendor. So all they need to do is confirm it's correct. The questionnaire is fully customizable, so you're able to hide any of the default questions you don't want to ask your vendors. You're also able to hide entire sections. So if you'd like to hide all questions in known property issues, for example, you can do that with one click. What's more, you can add your own custom questions to any of the sections. Let's say I want to know whether properties have a charging port for EVs. I'll add a new question to the end of the utilities section. Once I've typed my question, I can select what type of answer I want from short text, paragraph, number, currency, a single option, a multi-select where the vendor can select multiple options that apply, or lastly, a date. For this, I'm going to select single option. I can then add as many options as I like and can even drag to reorder the options. Lastly, I can add helper text to the question to further explain the options. But the power and flexibility of the questionnaire builder doesn't stop there. You can create totally custom sections with custom questions specific to your agency, area, or workflows. I'm going to create a new section called Your Preferences, where we can capture information to make sure my client has the best possible experience. As before, I can add as many custom questions as I want, capturing their preferences in a totally automated, efficient, and reliable way. And you can add as many sections as you like. Changes are saved automatically along the way, and when I'm finished, all I need to do is hit publish, and Street will automatically begin distributing the questionnaire to new clients. Let's head to the Street app and see what this would look like from a client's perspective. Your client will automatically receive a push notification prompting them to complete the PIQ, and the status will change to a waiting response in your Street CRM. To avoid conflicting responses, it even works with multiple vendors who've both downloaded the app, allowing them to see if the other has started completing the process. Each section and question is beautifully displayed with a bar showing how far they've made it along. They'll fill out the questions and be able to answer do not know to any questions where they are unsure. Once complete, your client sees a summary where they can review and amend any answers, and the task will be ticked off in their to-do list back on the property page in your Street account. We can see that the status has instantly changed to completed and is ready for you to review. Street automatically flags discrepancies between information the vendor has inputted and the data you already hold. Agents can choose to discard or update the field automatically across the Street platform to ensure a consistent source of information. Once everything has been checked and submitted, the data will pull directly into reports and your agent app, so you can quickly pull up key information on the go at future property appointments to really wow potential buyers at viewings and secure that sale. And we've not stopped there. We've also built an integration between Street Insights and street.co.uk, the CRM. And that means that when you're creating a property record within Street or you locate one, Street Insights data is being pulled through automatically and presented in the Street CRM. So your team are automatically armed with all the material information they could ever need against that property record without you having to do a thing. And finally, we've also worked with the portals and adjusted the portal feeds to automatically include any material information data that's stored in Street to be pushed and published onto the portals for Rightmove feed, Zoopla feed, and on the market feed, and be presented in an accurate and clear way. So, in summary, for any agent that isn't already prepared for material information, you should certainly be getting prepared for it. It doesn't need to be seen as a negative. It will create more engaged buyers and more informed buyers and enable the agent's business as well. Now, for anybody that wants to learn about how proptech can help reduce the risk of sanctions and also help streamline those processes, then get your demo booked of either Spectre or Street, or both, obviously, by heading to street.co.uk or spectre.uk.com and get those demos booked in. We're also going to be hosting a fireside chat with Sally over the next few weeks and our co-founder Heather. So if there are any questions that we haven't answered today that you would like to see answered, then please send us an email at hello@street.co.uk and we'll make sure those questions get answered during that discussion. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.